We begin today with my telling you about what used to be one of my wife's favorite pastimes and could have led to a career, I think, if times had been different. And I tell you about her favorite children's book of all time and what I recently discovered about it and how that book, well, is very similar to a well-known and often memorized piece of scripture, all on the way to answering the question, what can we learn about God in a children's book? Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey. I'm Dan, my sidekick here is Quark, and we're your co-pilots for today's spiritual adventure. Welcome to Sky Pilot Faith Quest, the video version. Okay, before we even get started, I have something, well, fun for me anyway. I had a viewer reach out and ask me an interesting question. He said, I sound so much like Casey Kasem, the radio DJ who hosted American Top 40 back in the 70s and 80s. He wondered if I had modeled my speech patterns on his. So I'd love to know from you. Let me know in the comments. Do you know who Casey Kasem even is? And if you do you think I sound like him?
My name's Casey Kasem, reminding you to keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
I have not, in fact, at all tried to model my voice or speech pattern on his, but I do not mind the comparison. I was a huge fan of his, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now on with the show. Had we been born a little bit later, 25 years or so later, I think my wife Sarah might have had a very different career. I think she might have honestly had a YouTube channel.
Oh, like giving people advice on how to deal with a difficult husband.
Okay, so maybe she would have had 2 YouTube channels, but no, that's not what I was thinking about. When our children got old enough to read to them, which was pretty young by my wife's figuring, she read to them a lot. And the more she read, the more she was constantly on the hunt for children's books, great children's books, excellent children's books, new children's books, old children's books. It didn't matter. She was just always on the hunt for them. And when we were around people with kids of a similar age, she would often make recommendations to some of them about books for their children. She would have loved creating a blog or a YouTube channel recommending books for parents of young children. She had some favorites too, of course. She still loves anything by Tommy DePaola. She liked Daniel Pinkwater, especially his book Aunt Lulu. And perhaps her favorite children's book of all time was written by none other than Margaret Wise Brown. Now, if you don't know who she is, Margaret Wise Brown, she's the author of Good Night Moon and a lot of other stuff that you had probably read to you as a young child, but perhaps you didn't know the author at the time. Now, though Good Night Moon is far and beyond her most popular and famous book, it's not, in my opinion, her best writing. I would argue that Good Night Moon was made popular by the Easter eggs hidden in the art. And in case you don't know the term Easter egg, it's simply, in this case, an image hidden within the picture. I remember searching for the mouse in different places in each picture in the book as I was a child. I'm pretty sure there's a mouse in every single picture. And if you pay attention, the clock advances 10 minutes in every single picture. Oh, and there's a copy of the book itself, Good Night Moon, on the table in one of the pictures. So Sarah's favorite of the books written by Margaret Wise Brown, and perhaps her favorite children's book of all time, is The Runaway Bunny. The premise of this book is simple yet touching. There is a little bunny that wants to run away, so he tells his mother his intention to do so. Now, there's no anger on the part of the little bunny in the book. Perhaps he's wanting adventure or maybe independence, but as he tells his mother his plans, she responds pretty consistently each time. So he begins by saying, I am running away. And she responds by saying to him, if you run away, said his mother, I will run after you, for you are my little bunny. He tells her that if she runs after him, he will become a fish and swim away. She tells him that she will become a fisherman and fish for him. Now, every time he comes up with something that he will turn into, she comes right back with the way that she will continue to seek him out. He will become a mountain. She will become a mountain climber. He will become a hidden flower in a garden. She will become a gardener. He will become a bird to fly away. She will become a tree that he wants to come home to. Finally, in his last attempt, he said, I will become a little boy and run into a house. If you become a little boy and run into a house, said the mother bunny, I will become your mother and catch you in my arms and hug you. As he discovers the nature of their relationship, the boundlessness of her love, he says, shucks, I might just as well stay where I am and be your little bunny. So he did. Have a carrot, said the mother bunny. The end. Now, let me say, I have listened to Sari read this story to our son, our daughter, our grandkids, and pretty much any child who will sit still or sit on her lap long enough to allow her to read this book. So I have heard this book a lot. I mean, a lot.
Okay, that's enough. We've got the idea.
Okay. And as I get it, I understand the allure for her of this book. It's a simple yet beautiful story about the relationship between mother and child and the boundless, limitless nature of the mother's love. So it made sense why she liked to read it, why she wanted the children to hear it. Then recently, as I was looking at a passage in the Bible, a familiar one, I suddenly thought that the runaway bunny is really an allegory about the nature of God. Now, let me say at this point, because there are kind of alarms going off in my head, because I've learned recently that there are so many people on YouTube. YouTube is filled with people who become very, very angry and threatened if you use any kind of image for God that even hints at God having a feminine aspect. So quickly, if this makes you uneasy, let me put you at ease. Yeah, actually, I'm not going to do that at all, because the Bible, big fact, the Bible has feminine images for the nature of God. So if this upsets you, argue with the Bible, not me. Anyway, as I was studying the 23rd Psalm, I thought how perfectly the runaway bunny describes an ideal relationship between mother and child, but also the relationship between each of us and the God who created us.
So you read the 23rd Psalm and immediately saw a parallel with the runaway bunny.
Yeah, I did.
So yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, immediately reminded you of the mother bunny saying, have a carrot.
Yeah, well, no. Look, I don't need your help trying to make me look like a fool in this podcast.
Truer words have never come out of your mouth.
Okay. Anyway, it is a specific part of the 23rd Psalm that reminded me of the runaway bunny. The end of the 23rd Psalm, verses 5 and 6, those verses have this to say, Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So here's the interesting part. There is this image of goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And first, let me say this, that goodness and mercy are not independent entities. They are the very nature of God. They're the things that God has to offer, wants to offer to us. And when the Psalm says they follow us, a better image would be that God follows us with those things in hand. But I want to say at that point, even more importantly, there is a translation here that is weak. It's way too weak. So I recently stopped by a park with our 5-year-old granddaughter to see the recently hatched wild baby geese that were there in the park. And they were very interested in our granddaughter, Nellie, and began to follow her kind of whenever she walked around. And it was both adorable and a great use of the word follow. The word follow can have a lot of meanings, but often is used to simply imply that one is following something, as in tagging along behind in hopes of maybe eventually gaining attention or approval. I mean, it's not always positive either. In our society, how often have you heard someone say something about how important it is to be a leader and not a follower? Following frequently has a connotation of, well, blind obedience, or at least a very passive nature to it, I think. But the Hebrew word in the 23rd Psalm, which is translated as follow, is radaf. And it does mean to follow. That's a good translation, but not like a goose chick follows its mother. And it can even have a negative meaning to it, which doesn't apply here, but I think can illuminate some of the meaning of this word. So it's a good place to start. It can mean to persecute. Persecute as in relentless, never giving up kind of way. And it is that part of the word that is important for us to realize at this point. There's absolutely nothing passive or mindless about the meaning of this word. It means to hunt, to pursue, to doggedly track with a single mindset and unwavering persistence. God is not a cute puppy dog following us with his gifts in hope of a few scraps of our attention. God is a bloodhound, relentlessly on our tail, never going to give up, but instead of being hunted to be defeated, we are being doggedly pursued until we realize that we are loved. And there is no place where we will ever run or go that is beyond the love of God and beyond the gifts God wishes to share with us. So yeah, just like the runaway bunny. And that's all for today. Oh, and if it makes you nervous that I took a story that isn't in the Bible and used it to say something about the nature of God, well, just remember this, that Jesus used all sorts of non-scriptural images and stories to teach people about God's nature. So let's just say I'm following his lead. Thanks for listening and sticking with me to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps the channel and other people discover this content. And on your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you. Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.